Hey, I'm Dr. Randall Blazak, and I wanted to talk a little bit about a tool that we have that can come in handy when we're trying to interrupt political violence. Um, in 1995, on April 19th, there was at the time the largest terrorist attack in the United States in Oklahoma City. The Murrah Federal Building was blown up by a member of the militia underground, killing 168 people, including 19 children that were in a daycare facility. And it kind of shocked the nation. How could this happen in America's heartland? How could it not be the usual suspects? Because at the time, a lot of people suspected Middle Eastern terrorists. In 1993, we'd had an attempt to blow up the World Trade Center in New York that killed 6 people. So that was the initial assumption. And then this Army vet, this white guy with blonde hair, 24 hours later was arrested by the FBI, and there was a bit of a conundrum about what was happening in this country with regards to anti-government militia groups, patriot groups, and the like. And so there was a lot of scholarship that came out following the Oklahoma City bombing, including a wonderful book by Ken Stern called Force Upon the Plain, in which he utilizes a model called the funnel model, or the militia funnel model, borrowed from some human rights group in Montana, to explain how mainstream people fall into this dark world of a violent anti-government underground. And essentially it works like a funnel model where it's wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. And at the top, there are just a lot of mainstream conservative issues. Think about gun rights, think about people concerned about how land is being taken to protect the environment at the expense of loggers. Think about people who are tax protesters, the folks, are concerned with immigration. I mean, sort of these mainstream political issues. But as you kind of move down, you lose people. And on the next level, it starts to become an anger at the federal government. The government are the bad guys, and the government are, sort of in it to disadvantage and disempower regular average Americans. And the next level down, you get into the dark conspiracy theories, and that it's some Illuminati at work. And then at the next level, those conspiracy theories kind of take a familiar face and then become anti-Semitic conspiracies about the Jews controlling the banks and controlling the media. And then at the bottom of the funnel, you get the revolutionaries. It's one thing to have an analysis, but it's another thing to actually have an action plan, and this idea of a second American Revolution, or a civil war, or how it's now being referred to as the Boogaloo. And so these are the people who we saw on January 6th, who wanted to literally stop the peaceful transfer of power. And they had started out wide and moved into the funnel. In the 1990s, it was a relatively small funnel that was funneling people into this very particular world called the militia movement that was mostly in rural parts of the country. In the recent years, thanks to social media and thanks to some very loud voices who promote a lot of these ideas, a lot more people sort of moved into the funnel and ended up down at the bottom. And that's why we saw such a huge turnout on January 6, 2021. And this funnel, which talks about how not everybody, but some people end up down this chute into the world of political violence, has been very useful in the last few years at explaining right-wing violence, explaining groups like the Three Percenters and the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and where those people come from and how they got there. And the beauty of this model is that it provides us places to interrupt that slide. You can have your political beliefs, in this case, conservative political beliefs, but if we can prevent you from blowing up buildings or taking up arms against the government, there's an opportunity there to prevent violence and prevent people from being hurt. The question is, and I had a good chance to discuss this model on CNN's United Shades of America. After all the sort of upheaval of 2020, especially here in Portland, I got to sit down with M. Kamau Bell and talk about how this funnel works, and they came up with a nice little graphic for it.
Conservative media is driving more people than ever before into the funnel.
That on the top level of this funnel, there are a lot of mainstream issues that bring people into the movement. Guns is a huge one. People really concerned about their Second Amendment rights, or land use, mainstream white suburban anxiety, But then you go down to sort of the next level of that funnel and it becomes a hatred of the federal government. And you go down another level and it becomes like all those Nicolas Cage movies, right? It's some cabal, some secret conspiracy. And then you go down the next level and it becomes an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Wow. It is a global Jewish conspiracy to deprive Gentiles and lost people of their rights. And you go down to the bottom of the funnel and it's the revolutionaries. And so the idea of this model, the more people you can bring in on mainstream issues, you can convince them to slide down to the bottom.
The question is there a similar funnel on the left? Because a lot of people will ask me, as a person who spent his life studying right-wing extremism, what about the left? What about the left? They've done some things. Well, it's true. In the first part of the 1970s, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of terrorist bombings in the United States, and they weren't done by right-wing extremists. They were done by left-wing groups. Some people might remember Patty Hearst and the Simeonese Liberation Army and groups like the Weather Underground. There were a lot of bombs, and a bunch of people got killed. Not on the level of Oklahoma City, but especially in protest of the Vietnam War, there were a lot of, especially campus bombings that were acts of domestic terrorism. So can we use this funnel model to explain extremism on the left? And so what I've tried to do is kind of take the right-wing model that we used in the 1990s to explain Timothy McVeigh and figure out where that might apply on the left side of the political spectrum. So what we would get at the top are mainstream liberal and left-wing issues, social justice issues like Black Lives Matter and queer and trans rights, those types of issues, abortion rights, kind of your general liberal causes around the environment, around civil rights for underserved people, and that's very wide, right? The majority of Americans would sort of fit somewhere in that category of supporting those rights. You come down a little bit farther, and then it becomes kind of a familiar anger at the federal government. The Republicans and the Democrats, they're all the same. They're all sort of reinforcing each other's power. Nothing is changing. And, it's the man. And we think about, the FBI as the agency that surveyed Martin Luther King and broke up a lot of the civil rights movement. There's this healthy distrust of the federal government that becomes a little bit obsessive on the next level down, that the government is always the bad guy. Can't trust the government. On the next level down, we start getting to our conspiracy theories again. And on the left, the conspiracy theories are really around money, around corporations having power, special interest groups and PACs and lobbyists really driving legislation, and the little guy not really having a lot of say because so much is determined by the people who have the money, the World Trade Organizations of the world and the corporate PACs and, the oil companies. And so these conspiracy theories really start driving the narrative. A little bit farther down, those conspiracy theories, although it's not the same as on the right, there starts to be some anti-Semitism that pops up. Or some of the narrative we have now around the Gaza-Israel conflict that sort of mixes up Zionism and anti-Semitism. So it's not as visible as it is on the right, but there still is this ugly appearance of anti-Semitism further down. And then when we get to the bottom of the funnel are the revolutionaries. Just like on the right, we have the right-wing revolutionaries. On the left, we have the left-wing revolutionaries, who are essentially the Marxists who believe that the capitalist system is horribly flawed and the only way to create a just society is to overthrow it. Just like Timothy McVeigh wanted to overthrow society for his vision, his white supremacist vision on the right. On left, there's a sort of a Marxist revolutionary picture. And the idea of this funnel, again, is the more people to come in the top. Not everybody, right? Most people don't make it down to the level of even know what Marxism is. Some people may make it down. And what we're seeing in the world today is this notion of accelerationism, is that people at both ends of the bottom of the funnel want societal collapse. They want to hurry up and crash the system so they can rebuild society in their own image. In that sense, there are fellow travelers on the right wing and the left wing of the funnel, at the bottom of the funnel. But again, the good news on the left wing of the funnel is that there are all these points of intersection. If somebody is sliding down towards violence, and certainly in this work we've encountered those people who feel like, democracy is horribly broken and the only thing that will save society is violent revolution. There are opportunities to do some de-escalation and interruption on the left part of the funnel as well. So, the left and the right are very different in many, many ways, including the amount of people who have been killed in right-wing terrorist attack versus left-wing terrorist attacks, but they both have body counts and they both have the propensity for violence. So this tool allows us to find ways of allowing people to have their First Amendment rights and express their grievances and want to seek social change to create a world that they see as the world that they want to live in, without getting to the bottom of the funnel where violent revolution ends up in people being hurt. So I hope this was useful. Just a little kind of thought experiment about how we might think about the right and the left in different ways, but also in similar ways. Hope this has been useful. For more information, visit us at cure-pdx.org.